see him, so I'm just going to start. Oh, there he is, and he's going like that. Wonderful. Welcome, everyone. This is amazing. I'm just so blown away by the turnout today, so thank you all for coming. Progressives like to note that the Constitution is a living document. And today I'm happy to report that perhaps nowhere in America is the Constitution any more alive than right here in Northeast Ohio. That's because in just 1 year, we've built our local professional chapter of the American Constitution Society into one of the most vibrant and engaged chapters in all of the country. Through nearly a dozen programs, we've met to discuss some of the most interesting and important constitutional issues of our age. We've considered the increasing role of religious voices in public policy, election reform in Ohio, and sex discrimination in college admissions. And we've pondered on numerous occasions whether judicial activism is, in fact, a myth. We've also invested in the next generation of progressive leaders. Working with our very dedicated student chapters at Case Western Reserve School of Law and Cleveland Marshall College of Law, we've created opportunities for like-minded students, professors, attorneys, judges, and community leaders to come together and connect. Today, the network we've built extends from a 1L on her first day of con law class to the Chief Judge of the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Ohio, who I'm so pleased to say is with us today, Judge Carr. For all of these accomplishments and more, I am unbelievably proud. I say thank you and congratulations to you all. As president of the Northeast Ohio chapter of ACS, it is my pleasure to welcome you all here today to celebrate our first great year and, much more importantly, to look forward to our next one. In doing so, it is our privilege to honor a leader who embodies our ideals, Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones. During her long career, the Congresswoman has embraced policies that respect diversity, encourage opportunity, and truly respond to human need. And just as our chapter seeks to do here in Cleveland, she works to make progressive values a reality on the national stage. Thank you, Congresswoman, for joining us today. We're so honored to have you. I would also like to thank the honorary chair of today's event, Congressman Louis Stokes. For a very new group in town that hopes to be a positive influence in promoting equality and justice, having Congressman Stokes lead your event is like having LeBron James play on your basketball team. So thank you, Congressman, for all your help and for taking a chance on us. ACS's success in Cleveland is the direct result of support from every single part of our wonderful legal community. We are humbled by the enthusiasm and encouragement we've received this year from the students and professors of Case and Cleveland Marshall, our state and federal magistrates and judges, and the hundreds of local attorneys and other friends who have participated in our efforts. Last but not least, I would really like to acknowledge the work of our chapter executive committee. It's really difficult to put into words what working with all these 11 people has meant to me this year. I think the best way to say it is that I've come to rely on them like family, and not just because one of them really is part of my family. You've each brought something wonderful, unique, and very special to our table, and our organization would not be the same without any one of you. Would you all stand and please be recognized? Finally, if you like what you see here today, and I sure hope you do, I hope you'll join us for our exciting summer speaker series listed on the blue flyer at your seats. In June, we'll feature Captain Brendan Mackin on practicing law inside a war zone. And in July, we'll host Professor Michael Benza of CASE on death penalty litigation and how you, yes, every single one of you, can get involved. I encourage you all to attend and to please pass along our invitation to your colleagues back at the office and any summer associates who will be with you soon. Now, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Lisa Brown, Executive Director of the American Constitution Society based in Washington, D.C. Lisa is an accomplished civil rights litigator, formerly practicing with the D.C. firms of Relman and Associates as well as Shea and Gardner. She also served as counsel to Vice President Al Gore and as attorney advisor in the Office of Legal Counsel at the Department of Justice. We are delighted to welcome her here today and most thrilled to welcome you all. Thank you and enjoy the program.
Please keep eating while I speak. We want to make sure that all of you get some nutrients in you while you're here, too. Thank you, Gail. It is terrific to be here and celebrate basically the launching of the chapter, which has been in existence for about a year. And I have to say, particularly to be here in Ohio, see what's going on the state level, seeing all of you really gives me hope for the future of this country, other states, and on the national level in the coming year. In fact, one of ACS's board members, Bill Marshall, is your new Solicitor General. So, I'm hopeful that we're going to see this kind of ever-increasing influence around the country from ACS. So thank you so much all for being here. And particular thanks go to Gail, and also to the Vice President Magistrate Vaudry, who is here, and Treasurer Jimmy Howell, who is also here, for all your work, to the entire Executive Committee, for all the work in putting together this event and in building what is clearly going to be an absolutely spectacular chapter. We are a grassroots organization, and we are only as strong and only as good as all of you. So don't think for a minute that what you do doesn't matter, because we have a small national office, and we are really all about all of you. So thank you. And you really have, in a short period, embraced the mission of ACS as your own. You are holding thought-provoking programs that are highlighting progressive perspectives. You are connecting professionals at every stage of their legal career, mentoring the next generation, and ensuring that we get some balance back into the debate over the critical legal and policy issues of our day. So this kickoff is just an example of, I know, ever greater things to come. So thank you. And Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones, it is an absolute honor to have you here to speak today. Your leadership has been, as Gail said, absolutely indispensable. And I would say that her record as both a former prosecutor, a former judge, and now a respected Congresswoman has shown us what just one person can do and why the effort of every single one of you matters. And Congresswoman, I would also say that she really is a role model for the rest of our members. So we're thrilled to have her here. And you know ACS is thriving, as Gail said, when we have not only the Congresswoman, but also former Congressman Louis Stokes with us. So we're also amazingly honored. What a great way to start the chapter. There are numerous judges here, and I think there's no greater compliment to ACS because of our focus on constitutional issues, not all constitutional, but to have so many judges here. And I know if I try to name everyone, I will leave someone out, so let me please just say thank you. We're honored by your presence, and welcome to all of you who are here. We could not hold this event or any of our other events without our spectacular sponsors. And I would like to name them because, quite seriously, we do not have the deep pockets of some of the Bradley, Scaife money of the conservative side, and so we are all about all the support that we get from different sources. So I want to say thank you to Baker and Hostetler as a gold sponsor in particular, silver sponsors Squire, Sanders and Dempsey, Voorhees, Sater, Seymour and Pease, Thompson Hine, Kathleen and Tim Havener, and then bronze sponsors Nessa Siegel, Nuremberg, Paris, Heller and McCarthy, Spangenberg, Shibley and Lieber, and Weltman, Weinberg, and Reese. So thank you all very much for making this lunch possible, for making our work possible. I would also like to mention the community partners, because ACS is all about working with other organizations. And I know that the Legal Aid Society of Cleveland, the Norman S. Minor Bar Association, and the National Bar Association have all been working closely with the chapter, and that means the world to us. Most importantly, thank you all for being here. As I said when I started, you are the heart and soul of ACS. We are as good as all of you, and I'm really looking forward to working with you to build a powerhouse chapter here in Northeast Ohio. I know it doesn't come as news to any of you right now that the Federalist Society and other conservative organizations have dramatically changed much of our legal and policy landscape over the past 25 years. And at the risk of reiterating what some of you may already know, I want to make sure you appreciate that this has not been the product of happenstance. This has been because of a concerted, coordinated effort on the part of the Federalist Society and other conservative organizations, which worked methodically to develop legal ideas that would support their policy ends, to get out there, propagate those ideas, get them out to lawyers, get them out to the media, to make them part of not just legal dialogue, but also mainstream dialogue. And then, of course, to build a network that would implement their ideas. Lawyers to argue their points in court, elected officials to enact their agenda, and last but certainly not least, judges to adopt their legal theories. The Federalist Society had the playing field to themselves for almost 25 years, and I'm thrilled to say, thanks to people like you, that is no longer the case. We really are satisfying the hunger for an organized response to the conservative movement, and particularly their legal agenda. We are generating and promoting ideas that support a progressive vision of our Constitution, law, and public policy on every important issue that our nation's facing today, and importantly, building a network of committed moderates and progressives that want to ensure that those values and that vision is actually a reality. So you can feel change in the air right now, which is exciting. And while the Federalist Society, you may have seen this, was actually publicly crowed on the front page of the New York Times several months ago about their success in taking over the judiciary, I think it is very fair to say that the rest of the country is waking up to the horrible price that our country has been paying from straying from our founding values of liberty, justice, equality, and the rule of law. And the impact of the, until recently, largely unchecked conservative ascendancy can be seen starkly today in a number of areas, everything from a vision of executive power that reminds me of King George III to retreat from Brown v. Board of Education's commitment to integration, from the loss of habeas corpus and torture to a refusal to regulate greenhouse gases. The range of issues that they have impacted are considerable. And if you care about these, I really encourage you to get involved in ACS. Whether your issue is civil rights, whether it's GLBT rights, criminal justice, the environment, religious liberties, access to justice, a woman's right to choose, get involved in ACS, because we are all about bringing balance back to the discussion of those absolutely critical issues. ACS is, in short, a forum for the development and dissemination of ideas that are rooted in our founding values of liberty, justice, equality, and the rule of law. Because we believe in the power of those ideas to generate positive change, especially when they are linked with a powerful network of individuals who want to make sure that those values are at the center of our laws and policies. Let me tell you a little bit about ACS and our growth in the last few years, because it just shows the hunger for the organization. We are about 5 years old, and in 5 years have gone from a good idea to a nationally recognized organization. We now have 155 student chapters around the country and 26 lawyer chapters in red and blue states alike, and more of both on the way. Thanks to this network, we hold almost 1,000 programs a year around the country, including a very high-profile national convention in Washington that was described by one of the speakers as a spa for the mind. And our white papers, articles, and recently launched ACS Journal at Harvard, which is the Harvard Law and Policy Review, are an intellectual resource to opinion makers, policymakers, leaders around the country, lawyers litigating every day, people doing the work on the front lines, people enacting policy. Through all these programs, we are doing congressional briefings now, press briefings. We are a source of referrals when the press are looking for somebody to be a spokesperson on a topic. Through all of these, we are an increasing resource for the leaders of this country, and we are increasingly influencing the dialogue. And we want to keep doing that more, and that's going to be because of all of you. So please, this is just a start. We want to be an ever-growing resource of ideas and person power for a progressive legal movement. And to accomplish that, we need every single one of you engaged in the organization. And I asked you actually to follow Gail's model in encouraging her father to become part of the chapter. I think multi-generational is spectacular. So think about whether it is a parent or a sibling or a child, in addition to your colleagues, that you can get involved in the organization. Write something for our blog, speak at one of our programs, write a white paper for one of our publications, mentor a student, get involved in whatever way works for you. And because you're the ones that are going to ensure that we actually really do start to make our laws more progressive, true to what I would say the promise of liberty and justice for all. So let me leave you with the words of Judge Abner Mikva, who I think is known to most of you, former Chief Judge of the D.C. Circuit, former Congressman from Illinois, and White House counsel under President Clinton. He wrote a piece a number of months ago for The Nation entitled ACS versus Federalists, where he makes a very compelling case for the critical importance of the work that all of you are doing. And he writes, ACS's goals are ambitious but attainable. Those who would despair of our success need only think of the small band of legal conservatives of 25 years ago. Their ideas then scorned by academics, ignored by judges, and unknown to the public, who persevered to build a powerful movement and reshape our world according to their notions. If you seek their works, look around you. Our work is just beginning. Don't just stand there or sit there. Join us. And now let me turn the microphone over to someone you all know, respect, and love, Congressman Louis Stokes. Congressman Stokes has had a career that is the envy of any lawyer, from arguing the seminal case, trying his best to argue Terry v. Ohio before the Supreme Court, to representing the 11th Congressional District of Ohio in Congress for 15 terms, and now having a legislative advisory practice at Squire Sanders and Dempsey. As chair of the House Select Committee on Assassinations, which, as you all know, was charged with investigating the murders of both President John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr., and then also serving as a member of the House Appropriations Committee, the House Iran-Contra Committee, and the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Stokes has, needless to say, played a vital role in our American history. He knows exactly why all of us must actively work to protect our constitutional rights and not stand by while they are chipped away, whether it be in the name of a special interest or in the name of national security. So, Congressman, welcome.
Thank you very much, Lisa Brown, to members of the Judiciary, members of the American Constitution Society, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, let me say what a pleasure and honor it is, Ms. Brown, to have you introduce me on this occasion. And let me welcome you to Cleveland and say what an honor it is to have you come here to inspire those of us in this community who now are aware of this fledgling organization here in our community, and who are very proud that you head up this organization. So thank you for coming. Thank you. Glad you mentioned Ab Mikva, too, because I served with Ab, one of the great members of Congress and one of the great judges in our country. Before I perform my duties here to introduce the Congresswoman, let me just say I was asked to be the honorary co-chairman of this, or honorary chairman, I guess, of this particular event. And when I was first invited, I looked at the literature, and I talked with a young lady by the name of Gail Horwitz, and I really became inspired to realize that we had young lawyers who were dedicated to the Constitution of this country and who were dedicated to the practice of the law surrounding our Constitution. And so I readily agreed that if young lawyers are interested in taking their time and spending their time on behalf of the kind of constitutional issues we have in this country today, the least I could do was to accede to their request to be their co-chairperson. And working with Gail has been a real pleasure. She and I had lunch together one day, and while we talked, she told me that her grandfather was Joe Horwitz. And I said, well, I knew your grandfather. He was the councilman in the city of Cleveland and a part of the generation that my brother and I were very active with him in politics. And it's good to see she and her father and others who are carrying on the tradition of a man like Joe Horwitz. So it's been a pleasure to work with you, and give her a big hand. She's done a great job. Thank you. Thank you. Now, by the way, John Lewis, you guys, you and David, you guys at Squire Saunders, having heard about me and LeBron being fair, treat me with a little more respect. The difficulty of introducing Congresswoman Stephanie Tubbs Jones to any audience is that most people in that audience feel that they already know her and have a very special relationship with her. I think proof of that occurred this morning. I'm on the faculty out at the Mandel School at Case Western Reserve University, and we had a meeting scheduled for 10 a.m. this morning. So I got out to the school and I called the dean's office to advise them of the fact that I'd have to leave the faculty meeting a little early to get down for 11:30 luncheon. So when he came into the faculty meeting, he came over to me and said, "Lou, I understand that you have to leave early, that you have to go down to a luncheon to introduce a lady who needs no introduction." So, and that, I think, is so very true. But her unique personality and her relationship to this community, long before she went to Congress, has further endeared her to all of us since she was elected to Congress. Introducing her on this program today is very important to me. We were friends long before she was elected to succeed me in the Congress. But more than that, she and I share a very special place in history together. Whenever she and I are together, the historic fact is that I am still the only African-American male ever elected to the Congress in the state. Also historic is that when she was elected to succeed me, she became the first and only African-American female ever elected to Congress in the history of our state. Her election to Congress was seen by many of us as a natural progression for her to move onto the national scene. Prior to running for Congress, Stephanie had already established a series of firsts in public service when she became the first African-American female in the state of Ohio to serve as a common pleas court judge. Prior to that, she had distinguished herself as a Cleveland Municipal Court judge. One of the highlights of her career was when she stepped down from the common pleas court bench to run for and was elected as the first female Cuyahoga County prosecutor. She also distinguished herself in this position. Stephanie's career in Congress has in many respects mirrored her previous outstanding career. It did not take long for her to demonstrate her leadership potential. In her second term, she achieved a very rare feat when she was elected to serve on the powerful House Ways and Means Committee. Again, she became the first African-American female in the history of the Congress to ever serve on that committee. In the current historic session of Congress, where Nancy Pelosi is serving as the first female Speaker of Congress, one of her first acts as Speaker was to appoint Stephanie to serve as chairperson of the House Committee on Standards of Conduct, the House Ethics Committee. There's no higher mark of respect in the House than to be selected to preside over the committee governing the conduct of every member of the House. In my contacts with my former colleagues in Congress, I am constantly reminded of what an outstanding job Stephanie is doing in representing the 11th Congressional District of Ohio. We can also be proud that our Congresswoman is a product of the Cleveland Public Schools and Case Western Reserve University for both undergraduate work and their law school. I am proud to present to you today our keynote speaker. She is an Ohio daughter who has an exemplary record of public service. We sent the best to Washington. Please join me in a warm Cleveland welcome to our Congresswoman, Stephanie Tubbs Jones.
Just one. One song can spark a moment. One flower can wake the dream. One tree can start a forest. One bird can herald sing. One smile begins a friendship. One hand clasp lifts a soul. One star can guide a ship at sea. One word can frame the goal. One vote can change a nation. One sunbeam lights a room. One candle wipes out darkness. One laugh will conquer gloom. One step must start each journey. One word must start each prayer. One hope will raise our spirits. One touch can show you care. One voice can speak with wisdom. One heart can know what's true. One life can make a difference. You see, it's up to you. An unknown author. Good afternoon. I've been blessed in my lifetime to have an opportunity to serve the people of the 11th Congressional District. And I've been blessed in my lifetime to have a predecessor who cares about what happens with me, who's always there to answer the phone or to encourage you to do something or to show you what to do. Not that I don't have to get to walk by the library that's named after him, the street that's named after him, the daycare center that's named after him, the medical center at Howard University that's named after him, the building at Meharry University in Tennessee. But all of that aside, Louis Stokes, an icon, is my good friend and my mentor. And I am so blessed that I've had the opportunity to have him with me. We laugh sometimes because the congressman told me the first day I went to Congress to go and meet Jack Murtha. I said, well, who is Jack Murtha? I've never heard of this man before. I know now who Jack Murtha is, and all of you do too. But more importantly, he just told me what to do and where to go. And as a result of that guidance and leadership, I've had an opportunity to be involved in all the activities in Congress. And Louis Stokes, thank you very much. Even when I got to be chair of the ethics committee, I said, Lou Stokes, there you are again. So we sit in the ethics committee hearing room. The ethics chair doesn't get an oil-painted photo like the other chairs of the committees. We just get a little photo, but I sit right there and I watch Lou Stokes. I said, you got me up in here doing this job, and I'm loving every moment of it. I want to say to Lisa Brown, Executive Director, thank you for coming from D.C. Thank you for shepherding and our chapter here in Northeast Ohio. And, of course, to Gail Horwitz. Good job, Gail. Give her another hand. I remember when I was a young lawyer, it was a tough job trying to whip these lawyers into shape. So keep on doing it, girl. You'll be all right. I want to very quickly say some hellos to a few people. Lisa, not coming from Cleveland, doesn't understand that judges have to get elected. So since judges have to get elected, when you're in a room with judges, you introduce them. I introduce you to, let me start on the right level here, Melody Stewart of the Court of Appeals. Stand up, Melody. Of the Common Pleas Court, Holly Gallagher. My old friend, good friend, Shirley Strickland Sappho of the Common Pleas Court, Judge. Now, who else did I miss? So let me see you. Oh, Judge Janet Burnside. I didn't see you on the Common Pleas Court. Lisa, I'm getting in trouble. Stand up so I can see you. Don't be bashful. Had Mary Jane Boyle, of the Common Court of Appeals now. Excuse me. Stand up, Judge Stuart Friedman of the Common Pleas Court. Judge Marilyn Cassidy of the Cleveland Municipal Court. Anybody else? And of course, William Vaudry, I hired him to the prosecutor's office. That's why he's a magistrate now. But I also want you to meet my district director, my good friend, great lawyer, Betty K. Pinckney. And I am pleased to announce that I am going to be receiving an honorary doctorate from Cleveland State University this year, and Betty Pinckney is going to be getting her PhD. So I want to congratulate her as well. Listen, I can look around the room and tell a story about everybody seated at a table, from something, Weltman, Ann, and just I could go through the list, and then I won't get a chance to speak. But I just want to say, Mark, and on and on and on, thank you for Peter, Marlon. I could go on, but I just thank you. I'm going to stop right now. For all the support, Jose, that I have received over the years from all the Randys. I'm going to get in trouble. Stop. No more names. But it is wonderful to come home and have a chance to talk to and encourage the people right in your own district. It's been said that you can never be a prophet in your own land, that you have to go away and come back and try and bring a message. But you all have always made me feel pretty darn good in my time in public life, and I just thank you for it very, very much. It's hard for me to believe. Mervyn, my son, all of you know Mervyn, my man-child, started working for the AG last week in victims' compensation. He's now 23 years old. And so I said, well, Merv, what's it like? He said, come visit me, Mom. So I went to visit his office before I came today. And it was just a wonderful feeling walking around. My baby boy's working in the Attorney General's office. Ow! Let me get on with why I'm here, because we might run out of time. We here in Northeast Ohio are at a crossroads. We have challenges that we are currently facing, John Lewis. In your mission statement, one of the words you use is progressive. Specifically, it says, your organization seeks to promote a progressive vision of the Constitution, the law, and public policy. I love this word, but I never thought, as I studied the Constitution, that I'd have to worry about having a progressive view. A progressive view. The Constitution is the Constitution is the Constitution. How dare them think that they can take over our Constitution and make it conservative? Conservatives say progressive. It means simply that you're a liberal, but I beg to differ. If being liberal means that I want to stand up to educate children across the United States of America, call me a liberal. If being liberal means that I want health care for all Americans, call me a liberal. If being liberal means I want to take care of older Americans in this nation, call me a liberal. If being liberal means that I want to take care of veterans who have been maimed and wounded and come home with no support to the United States of America, call me liberal, L-I-B-E-R-A-L. But let's talk about what progressive means. Progressive means, by definition, advancing, moving forward, increasing. Life is a series of progressions. And if that's what we have to do in order to make sure we hold safe that Constitution of ours, let's get busy. You progress from elementary school to high school, or from high school to undergraduate school, and from there to grad school. If you are fortunate enough to do so, you can progress in your thinking. You progress in your way of doing things. Whatever it is, we must always be in a perpetual state of forward motion. Listen to the words of Thurgood Marshall as he speaks about the Constitution. The government they devised was defective from the start, requiring several amendments, a civil war, and momentous social transformation to attain the system of constitutional government and its respect for the individual freedoms and human rights we hold as fundamental today, unquote. Barbara Jordan takes it a step further. We, the people, is a very eloquent beginning. But when the Constitution of the United States was completed on the 17th day of September 1787, I was not included in that, we the people. I felt for many years that somehow George Washington and Alexander Hamilton just left me out by mistake, unquote. The song says, everything must change. Nothing stays the same. Just as the Constitution has changed over the years, and it hasn't changed, but its interpretations have changed, we as Americans continue to change. Today, we're more diverse. We know more about the world around us, and we have access to more information. With this newfound knowledge, there has to be change. Just last week, the House passed a bill that if it makes through the Senate and signed by the President, will give the people of the District of Columbia a voting representative in the House. Can you imagine that all these years, these Americans who've been paying taxes, serving in the military, they have not had a vote in the House of Representatives? The question should not be why don't they have a vote? It should be why have we waited so long to give them a vote in the Congress? Many Americans polled believe that D.C. already had a voting delegate, and yet there are still people that are dead set against giving them this right. The president has threatened to veto the bill if it comes to his desk, just like he's threatening to veto everything else. I can't wait to veto the president myself. I would like to suggest that these people, FBI, if you're listening, I'm only joking, okay? I would suggest that these people are afraid of progress. However, history has showed that progress will always overcome any adversity that stands in its way. So the question is, what do we do as lawyers to prepare ourselves to compete in this ever-changing society? What can we do to spread the message of ACS across the width and breadth of this country? I'm going to give you a few tips on how I think this might happen. First, you must have a vision. The Bible says, without vision, the people perish. Now, I know that ACS has a vision or a mission statement, and that's great. But understand that is a collective vision for the group. Each one of you must develop your own individual vision. When you think about the mission of the organization, how do you see yourself fitting into that mission? What skills or talents do you have that would lend themselves in a positive way to achieving your individual and the collective goal of the organization? Next, you must apply that vision to Northeast Ohio. To do this, you must understand the dynamics of the area, the economic climate, the political climate, the educational systems, the lack or access to health care. We all know that Northeast Ohio is transitioning. Where it was once a community where manufacturing jobs rule, we're now seeing a shift. As technology becomes more prevalent, many of those jobs are being eliminated. And as more people are losing manufacturing jobs, there is now a need to re-educate the workforce so that we can get into the more skilled labor jobs that are coming to the area. At the same time, we know that we have to strengthen our educational systems and continue to build our infrastructure. All of this is key in making Cleveland and Northeast Ohio attractive to others so that we are able to attract new and younger people in this area. The other day, I was at Case Western Reserve speaking to a group of graduate students, and one of the students asked me, well, what about the brain drain? What are you going to do in Ohio to keep students here? I said, well, what do I need to do? You answer that question. Tell me what it is that would keep you in Ohio once you've degreed and you wouldn't leave. Well, there happened to be one young man from another country who said, treat your visitors better. I said, okay. Others said, downtown living, job opportunity, things to do. I said, one of the great things about Northeast Ohio is the great housing stock we have. You can buy any house affordable in Northeast Ohio. That should factor into the brain drain. But along with your vision, you must have some intuition to look beyond the obvious. You must be able to think of a new and creative ways to address the issues that plague this area. You'll run into people who will tell you this is how it's always been done. I get so tired of those people. We've been doing it like this for centuries. That's why we're where we are. Let's change up. Let's do something else. But it can't always be business as usual. With progress comes change, and we here in Northeast Ohio sometimes have been afraid of change. Because of this, some things have passed us by. I was looking the other day, since I started, I'm the #1 most traveled member of Congress. You all know that. They write about it all the time. But go to Detroit Airport. Unbelievable. Go to the Pittsburgh Airport. Unbelievable. Go to the Cincinnati Airport. Now, that's not anything against new director Ricky Smith. Ricky, I love you, and I think you're doing a hell of a job out there at the airport. But just think about, how did they move past us with some of the things that are going on? Once you've identified your vision, you must take action. Don't just talk about it. As the kids in the streets say, be about it. Make it your passion. There are many people in this world who are content to sit around and complain about what they feel is wrong. Many of them have great ideas, but do not put them into action. From my perspective, that's wasted energy. Let's put them into action. The last thing that you must do is to empower others. The wonderful thing about looking around this room is lawyers are generational. They're some of the youngest lawyers in Ohio, in great Northeast Ohio, and there's some of the older lawyers in Northeast Ohio. And the combination of the two can make for a significant difference. I always tell people that the reason they call the practice of law the practice of medicine, the more you practice, the better you get at it. You all know that. You know, there used to not be law schools or admissions test or bar test. What you did literally was work with someone, apprentice, and get better and go on. Let me also suggest a few other things I want to share with you. African American enrollment in law school. The different admissions tests, the different decisions in courts has diminished the number of African American lawyers in this nation. I'm very proud to say that I am the face of affirmative action. I had great grades, but that LSAT, that SAT gave me the blues. And imagine if there had not been affirmative action. All those firsts that Lou Stokes told you about may not have happened for me. Thank God somebody said, okay, let's look at something other than solely a test to determine how a person should get into law school or have an opportunity. And I know that there are thousands of young Stephanie Tubbs Joneses across this country who just want a chance, who just want an opportunity. God rest his soul, James Brown used to say, I don't want nobody giving me nothing. Open up the door, I'll get it myself. And so I say to you that that is one of the real issues that we need to talk about in terms of, it's not only, I had a GAO study done because it was said that there was some connection between law schools who were willing to put aside LSAT scores and their ability to get confirmation for the work they're doing. So we're still waiting on some resolve, but those of you who have the opportunity to clearly look at diversity within the field of law, diverse opportunities in terms of partnerships, in terms of internships, in terms of new associates, I am going to encourage you to do that. Even the study the other day that was looking at what was happening in Northeast Ohio said that one of the things that we need to do in Northeast Ohio is to support African American businesses and to give them an opportunity to come to the table. And you can do that through lawyering. One of the biggest businesses in Northeast Ohio. All you lawyers in the room, you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you know that even though I'm a member of Congress, I am a lawyer first. When they're on the floor of the House beating up on trial lawyers, I stand up and say, hey, I'm a trial lawyer. Don't you be talking about my friends. But I have to tell you, the fact that I am a lawyer, the fact that I've had experience as a prosecutor and experience as a judge is what gives me the strength to be able to chair the ethics committee. And all of that skill set allows me to sit in that room and do the things that I need to do. Nancy Pelosi described me, the reason that she appointed me, as fair and tough. I said, okay, I like that, Speaker Pelosi. I'm fair and I'm tough. I like that reputation. But more importantly, you remember when I was the Cuyahoga County prosecutor, I held that responsibility in my hand gingerly. And prosecutors and chairs of ethics are some of the most powerful people in our nation. And as we talk about the Constitution and we have to make sure that people in those roles understand that the ethical responsibilities that they have. I also joined, I already said that. That's what happens to me. I start talking quickly and go past what I wanted to say. Let's talk about voting rights just for a moment. I joined earlier this year with Senator Hillary Clinton to reintroduce the Count Every Vote Act, which is a comprehensive piece of voting reform legislation that demands an electoral system that not only ensures that every voter is given the opportunity to cast a vote, but also instills in every voter the confidence that his or her vote has been counted. The act will provide a voter-verified paper trail record for every vote cast in electronic voting machines and ensures access to voter verification for all citizens, including language, minority voters, illiterate voters, and voters with disabilities. It mandates this ballot be the official ballot for purposes of a recount. The bill sets a uniform standard for provisional ballots so that every qualified voter will know their votes are treated equally, and requires the Federal Election Assistance Commission to issue standards that ensure uniform access to voting machines and train election personnel in every community. I have to tell you that in December of '04, I thought very, very hard about whether or not I should stand up and object to the counting of the Ohio vote. And there were people on all sides of the issue saying, yeah, I think you should. Then others saying, oh, you'll destroy your political career in the Congress, you know, standing up against the president and so forth and so on. I said, come on. But more importantly, I believe that it was an opportunity to focus the United States of America, even if it was only for 2 hours, on the problems with voting and irregularities occurring in our country. How could we, this great nation that we represent, go all over the world and say to them, people, well, we've got it down right, and so we're going to come in and we're going to review how you vote. And they weren't willing to review how we vote right here in the United States. In fact, a couple of my Ohio colleagues said to me, Stephanie, you know that if you object to the counting of the Ohio vote, that may present a problem with whatever appropriation you receive. I said, well, them little millions of dollars I've been getting, I want billions anyway for Northeast Ohio, so you can just go on and take them. I'm going to object to the counting of Ohio vote. Then when the Democrats get in charge, I won't have to worry about what you're telling me. God works. And we're on another issue about, as we go through this process, about earmarks and the like, and that'll be another story for another day. But the energy that I saw across the state of Ohio, because people said somebody really does understand that, well, I'm worried about my vote. All the young people who we had out voting and went to balloting places and didn't have a chance to get a ballot, and other issues, or they voted and the provisional ballot wasn't counted because of how you interpret what and what happens with a provisional ballot. That's something that we can focus in on, ACS, and make sure that people's votes count. I'm going to skip along a little more quickly. And I would encourage you that as we move towards the 2008 election, that many of you be prepared to, on election day, be available to, regardless of your party. Because voting, the protection of the vote, is not a Republican or a Democratic piece. It is the cornerstone of what we in the United States believe. Let me talk about, for a moment, this great thing called the Patriot Act. When I went to Congress, I thought that campaigning and slogans was the place that happened out in the campaign. But there's as big a campaign in the Congress for legislation, and you call it, you know, one of them was something about Voter Protection Act. I'm thinking we're protecting voters. And I look up Howard, and here we are protecting the other side, saying that labor unions can't collect dollars for political purposes through a check. Last October was the 5th anniversary of the Patriot Act. While many Democrats did vote for it, I was opposed to the legislation. Since its enactment in 2001, both Republicans and Democrats have expressed concerns about the implementation, including provisions allowing the government to conduct broad searches of Americans' libraries, medical, and business records without any probable cause or connection to terrorism. In addition to some of these issues, my reasons for voting against the bill include domestic spying, in my perspective, is unconstitutional. Habeas corpus should be respected even for terrorist suspects. The Patriot Act invests too much power in a centralized executive. And the Geneva Convention defines torture, and U.S. actions must follow those international rules. I sit sometimes on the floor of the House and take myself back to being a judge. And I say, I cannot believe the arguments that are being made by my colleagues on the floor of the House in the name of terrorism. Now, keep in mind, I don't like the terrorists. I think they should be taken care of. But I have a real problem with giving you the sense that you are going to be better protected because we can now infringe upon our personal rights. It ain't about that. It's not what we ever intended in the United States of America. And I think going through what we're going through right now with the current Attorney General, and probably if you went back through the records of the former Attorney General and went a little deeper into some other things, you'd probably find more indices of what the executive branch has attempted to do in violating the rights not only of terrorists, but of normal citizens, regular citizens. I think it was just the hardest thing that I used to, when I first became a lawyer, and people would say, well, how can you represent somebody even though they're guilty? And I'd look at them and say, have you ever heard of the presumption of innocence? And what we want in our system is we want to protect the innocent. And the provisions that we have in the law that give the innocent those protections are the same protections that we even give to the guilty. And see, my minister used to say to me all the time, he said, Stephanie, when you get to be a judge, he said, I don't want justice. I want mercy. He said, because if all of us got our justice, we might all be in trouble at some juncture. Let me talk to you for a moment about attorney-client privilege. I am amazed at the erosion of that sacred peace privilege called attorney-client. In 2003, the McNulty Memorandum, 2006, the Thompson's Memorandum, 2001, the Seaport Report are all examples of the government using strong-arm tactics to deal with the companies and corporate bar that represent them. And so in essence, what they say to them, well, you don't want your company to be on the front page or the front line and in trouble about the work that you do. So in order for you to keep your company out of place, we need you to make sure that your employees are willing to step up and tell us A, B, C, D, E, F, G. These policies put unnecessary tensions on employee-employer relationships. They undermine fundamental liberties that workers have fought long and hard for and serve to weaken overall corporate internal relations that are critical to well-functioning corporations. Indeed, it's not far-fetched to presume that these policies, which infringe on the work product doctrine, will eventually have a deleterious effect on corporate productivity and compliance, even the overall economy. I have talked to, over the weekend, I was talking with some corporate representatives, and they said a lot of people placed in the position are scared to death. And it's either give up the information or fear that the company has a loss, that they have a loss, or that the leadership will say something to them about their work product. Let me finally just talk for a moment about the current controversy with our Attorney General. I, like many others, have calls for his resignation, call for him to be fired. And I mean, it's a tough job. It's a tough statement to make. But when you cannot explain the conduct of the people in your own office, when you cannot remember a meeting that you attended and what occurred, when you cannot respond to, let me even back up and say this. When I was Cuyahoga County prosecutor, and I went to my first National District Attorneys Association meeting, I went out looking for guidance and direction because there was no bigger prosecutor's office in the state of Ohio than my own. So I went out, met my friend in L.A., prosecutor, met a friend in Brooklyn, met a friend out of New York, some people out of other parts of California, and I asked them, I said, how do you process this? What do you do? What do you do to make sure you know what's going on in your own office? They gave me interviewing techniques. They said you put in place policy and you expect that everybody that's in the leadership in your office understands that policy, and then you take ownership for whatever happens, whether you did it or not. Gonzalez needs to take ownership, even if he doesn't remember, even if he can't recall. The great words. My husband used to tell me, I have to laugh about this. I would come home when I was an assistant prosecutor and we first got married. He said, Stephanie Tubbs Jones, you are not going to cross-examine me. He would say, he said, you may do that at work, but you better leave cross-examination down there, or we're going to have a real problem. But you really, there is an obligation for the leadership to take responsibility. And then the other thing that historically, even if the Attorney General has the ability to fire somebody, which we all know they do, they're at-will employees and so forth and so on, come up with a better damn excuse. Come up with a better reason for getting rid of these young attorneys across the board. Because it is in the power of the Attorney General, in the power of the prosecutor, no greater power. People said, well, you left the bench. Do you miss being a judge? I said, no, I really don't. I enjoy being a judge. But judges are restricted. Their power lays within the four corners of the document that becomes before them. An indictment, the jury, or they make a determination. You can't go any further than that. A pleading, you can't give anybody any more than they seek in the redress, even in equity court, even though you have a little value. I said, your prosecutor, the Attorney General, you can say whether anybody passes GLOW or ever collects $200. You can decide through your discretion that there will be no case. You don't even need a lawyer. You can decide what is, particularly in Ohio, the prosecutor in Ohio is like a mini attorney general. You have civil and criminal jurisdiction. You advise all the county elected officials. You advise all the library systems. You advise the judges. Being prosecutor was fun. But no more fun than being a member of Congress. Let me lastly, and I must do this because some people have focused on it, some. I was an honorary chair for the women's NCAA finals here in Cleveland, and there was no greater event than that event here for the city. It was no greater event for young men and women across the country, for young girls to have an opportunity to see athletes and stars that were women. It was no greater event for us to rethink and think about Title IX, and for IMUS to have even stepped close to that, using all kinds of excuses about hip-hop and rap and all that other, no excuses. And I was so happy when they fired his behind. He needed to go. And more importantly, it's an opportunity for all of us to think about what we need to do to assure fairness and right and unbiased decisions, and bring everybody into the court, that anybody would even think that they could get away with such commentary. I thank both of the stations for finally stepping up, and I thank all of you, those who called in or even talked about what should go on. It is, I have seen in my 57 years of being on this line, I used to play basketball in high school. I was a rover. I was the only member of the women's team that could go across middle court. All the other girls used to have to stay on the end. We've come a long way. And what I've also seen is the growth in the confidence of young women. See, it's about team playing, and they didn't teach us team playing. We didn't know anything about that till many, many years later. And all of you know how important, Landis over there shaking her head, how important it is to be a part of the team, but to be strong enough on the team to be willing to speak up. And so I'm just so happy that we're not by the issue, because there are other things that we will have to get done. But I am confident that we can move forward. So ACS, I'm so happy to join you today as you kick off the celebration. There's no greater day than for me to be with the Honorable Congressman Louis Stokes. There's no greater day than for me to be with my colleagues and friends. I love the law. Now, when I was in law school, I don't know if I loved law school that much. And Earl Weichen, one of my professors, is seated at the table. I can remember days as I sat in law school and said, what am I doing up in here? But as I look back on it and the experience, I can say with glee that I am glad I went to law school. It's the best thing I ever did. The one thing I also told people was I was never going back into law school unless I was a professor. Well, that's not true. But I want to thank the bench and the bar. Big federal judge, Judge Carr, I didn't acknowledge you because you've been acknowledged already, but I want to thank you for your support and your encouragement and the opportunity to go along. What I didn't say about objecting to the counting of the Ohio vote was that I didn't care what people said to me. I knew that the people of the 11th Congressional District expected me to stand up, expected me to say what was right, expected me to do the right thing. And that is what allows me to be the big mouth that I am in the U.S. Congress. It gives me a chance to say what I want to say because I know you all have my back, and I'm deeply appreciative. Let me close with this. Live your creed. I'd rather see a sermon than to hear one any day. I'd rather one should walk with me than just show me the way. The eye is a better pupil and more willing than the ear. Advice may be misleading, but examples are always clear. And the very best of teachers are the ones who live their creeds, for to see good put into action is what everybody needs. I can soon learn to do it if you'll let me see it done. I can watch your hand in motion, but your tongue too fast may run. And the lectures you deliver may be very fine and true, but I'd rather get my lesson by observing what you do. For I may misunderstand you and the fine advice you give, but there's no misunderstanding how you act and how you live. Thank you so very, very much for a chance to speak with you today. Taking questions?
Thank you, Congresswoman. That was great, and I hope you're right that there are a lot of young Stephanie Tubbs Joneses running around out there, because I think we'll be in for a treat in the next 20 years or so in this area. So I just want to thank everyone again for coming. I really urge you to stay involved with ACS and take up the Congresswoman's call for action. If you are looking for a way to get involved in the community, if you are looking for some help in learning about these issues or connecting with a pro bono opportunity or looking for a young person to mentor, we're a great resource, and please don't hesitate to contact any of the executive committee members listed on the back of your programs. Thank you so much for coming, and have a great day.